All right, let's just jump right in. Imagine this, a city where for hundreds of years the go-to solution for a political argument wasn't a vote, it was throwing your opponent out of a window. A high window. I'm not kidding. That city is Prague. And believe it or not, this wasn't just some weird one-off event. It was basically a political tradition, one that actually sparked wars and changed the course of history.
So take a look at this painting. This is the big one. The most famous incident from 1618. You've got these absolutely furious Protestant nobles grabbing the Catholic representatives of the emperor and, well, yep, they're chucking them right out of a castle window. I mean, what gets you to that point? What could possibly lead a group of powerful men to do that? Well, it turns out the answer is centuries of religious and political tensions just simmering until they finally boiled over. And here's something that's just wild. The whole reason we have the word defenestrate in English, it's because of this. The word was literally invented to describe what kept happening in Prague. Think about that. It's not just some random vocabulary word, it's a piece of history created specifically for this unique form of political expression.
But here's the thing. That famous event in 1618, that wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the second time. Nope. It was actually the third major defenestration. And this was a pattern, you see, a violent political habit that had been around in Bohemia for a very, very long time.
Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go all the way back to the beginning, to the very first one. And, spoiler alert, it set a pretty bloody precedent.
So here are the three key dates we're going to look at. 1419, 1483, and then the big one, 1618. Each one was a huge deal, but what happened after was completely different each time.
Right, so picture this. It's July 30th, 1419. There's this radical priest, Jan Jelivsky, and he's leading a massive protest through the streets of Prague. His followers, called Hussites, were basically religious reformers who were really fed up with the established Catholic Church. They're marching to demand the release of some of their friends who'd been thrown in prison. You can just imagine the atmosphere. The tension was absolutely electric.
Then, someone inside the new town hall throws a rock at the procession. Bad move. The crowd just snaps. They go wild. They storm the building, hunt down the judge, the burgomaster, and the council members, and just start throwing them out of the windows. And the mob below was waiting. Let's just say they finished the job. This wasn't some careful political plan. This was raw, spontaneous fury. And that one single violent act, it was the spark. It kicked off the Hussite Wars, a really brutal religious conflict that ripped Bohemia apart for almost 20 years. So yeah, the first defenestration didn't just end a protest. It started a full-blown war.
All right, on to Act 2. And this one, well, this one takes a turn you would absolutely not expect.
Okay, so fast forward 64 years. It's September 24th, 1483, and it's like déjà vu all over again. You've got these religious factions, a branch of the Hussites, who are convinced they're about to lose all their power. So what do? They launch a coup, storm the town halls, and, you guessed it, they start throwing the city councilors out the windows. Again.
But this is where it gets really weird. The first time this happened, in 1419, it led to a massive war. This time, in 1483, the result was peace, the total opposite. How on earth does that happen?
It's pretty mind-boggling, right? Instead of kicking off another huge war, this violent coup actually forced everyone to sit down and talk. It led to something called the Peace of Kutna-Hora, which guaranteed religious freedom and brought about 31 years of stability. So the takeaway here seems to be that sometimes throwing people out of a window actually works. It's a bizarre lesson to learn from history. Which brings us full circle, back to 1618. More than 100 years have passed, and that long peace between Protestants and Catholics? Yeah, it's pretty much gone. The whole region is a powder keg, just waiting for a spark. And that sets the stage for the most famous and most consequential defenestration of all. So, what lit the fuse this time? Well, it was a classic power grab. The new king, Ferdinand II, was a hardline Catholic, and he starts stripping away Protestant rights. First, he orders them to stop building their own chapels. The Bohemians protest saying, hey, this violates a legal agreement we have. So what does Ferdinand do in response? He just dissolves their entire assembly. Basically tells them to shut up and sit down. As you can imagine, the Protestant nobles were not happy. They were furious. Led by a guy named Count von Thurn,
They marched right into Prague Castle on May 23, 1618, to confront the king's guys. And you can just feel the anger in what Count von Thurn said to them. This wasn't just a disagreement. For them, it was a massive betrayal.
So they hold this quick, very tense kangaroo court right there in the council room. Then the Protestants grab two of the king's regents. That's one of them right there, Willem Slavata, plus their secretary. And what they did next, well, it changed everything. It's almost unbelievable. They heaved them out of a third-story window. We're talking a 70-foot drop. It's about 21 meters. And yet, somehow, all three of them survived. They lived. And the fact that they survived the fall instantly became the biggest story in Europe, kicking off a huge propaganda war.
Right away, the Catholics were yelling, "It's a miracle! The Virgin Mary sent angels to catch them! This proves God is on our side!" The Protestants, on the other hand, had a slightly different take. Their version: the men survived because they got lucky and landed in a giant steaming pile of horse manure that had collected in the castle's moat. Divine intervention versus a dung heap. You decide.
But here is the crucial difference. Unlike that second time, this act did not lead to peace. Not even close. This was the match that lit the fuse of the 30 Years' War, one of the most destructive conflicts in all of European history. It absolutely devastated Central Europe, completely crushed Bohemia's independence, and redrew the map of the continent. So you'd think, right, after starting a war that engulfed a continent, maybe, just maybe, Prague was done with throwing people out of windows. But this story has one last, very strange, and very modern twist. When you look at this window at Prague Castle today, you're not just looking at a piece of a building. It's a symbol. It's a reminder of this incredibly violent tradition. And believe it or not, in the 20th century, the long, dark shadow of that tradition fell over the city once more.
Okay, now jump forward to 1948. The communists are taking over Czechoslovakia. And then the country's popular foreign minister, Jan Masaryk, is found dead, where? In the courtyard, right underneath his bathroom window. The official story was suicide, but from day one, almost nobody actually believed that.
And it's been a cold case ever since. Was he murdered by the Soviets? Was he pushed by the new communist government? The case has been opened, closed, and reopened for decades. In 2004, a police report actually concluded it was murder. But then, a new investigation was shelved just in 2021 because there just wasn't enough hard evidence. The real story is still out there, somewhere.
And that's the legacy, isn't it? This bizarre, violent tradition that just echoes through Prague's history, all the way from medieval holy wars to Cold War spy thrillers. It just leaves you with this really unsettling question. Could it be that the city's most infamous political weapon was used again in our own modern history? And you have to wonder, has Prague truly seen its last defenestration?